Hello everyone, welcome back to Kirklees Guitar School. In today's podcast, we discuss plectrums, bar chords, underrated guitar players, and take some questions from us audience. Stick around, it's going to be a great one. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Kirklees Guitar School podcast, episode 8. I'm joined today with my co-host, Mr. George Loveridge. How you doing, George?
Yeah, not so bad, James, not so bad. Should we start off with rock and roll?
Okay, go on, I'll let you go first.
And musically, it's been a rock. I've been learning some cool stuff for different students, doing some finger picking here and there, which sort of ties into what we looked at last week. Doing a lot of tabs for people. Right. Teach a bloke, David. Hello, David, I know you watch. We're doing Autumn Leaves, Eric Clapton.
Oh, wow.
So I've had the first solo to that.
Nice.
There's some nice fancy chords in there as well. Bit of stuff going on at home, but when is there not, you know? But yeah, overall, I'd say it's a rock this week, which is quite nice. Getting ready for gigging, and in the shot, you can see there's actually sun for the first time in the 8 weeks we've been filming.
Well, that's it for the 3 days that the sun's going to come out in England. We're using one of them here and we're doing a podcast instead of enjoying it outside.
Yeah, so that's it. What about you then? I'm a rock. What are you?
It's been a roll this week.
Oh, dear.
It's been a roll. So, using this lovely 355 today, I'm just going to put this out of shot for a second, and I'd advise you pop your guitar down as well because I've got something to show you.
Oh, heck. Is this to do with the J45?
That's why the J45 is back here in shot. So,
oh, dear.
People who've been part of the KGS ecosphere for a while will know that this is my main teaching guitar. It's a J45 in walnut. We spoke about it in episode 4.
Yep, when we had all the acoustics on the set.
Okay, if I remember, I'll post a picture on screen now of what happened to this guitar. Now, I broke the head of this guitar.
Is it a couple of years ago?
About 18 months ago, I broke the head of this guitar. And our friends at the top of the road, Acoustic guitar setup, set it up, reattached.
Yeah, they did a good job as well, yeah.
Well, yeah, they did a good job, and I want to sort of caveat with this is this doesn't reflect badly on Acoustic guitar setups whatsoever. This is just the circumstance of how it's all come together. So I just want you to have a little play of that, and then feel the joint where it's broken.
Oh. That is starting to come away again.
Yes.
Now, it was a seamless job, but you could see the wound. Is that a fair description of the repair?
When they did it, the way that I broke it, I'll put that picture on screen again. The way that it had broken was in a really awkward. It sort of broken at an angle, and the repair shop had said to me, "It'll go back together, but I don't know whether it'll stay back together. I'll do my best." But also, with it being a natural finish, there's always going to be a flesh wound. There's always going to be a scar there because they'll never get it because it's literally stained wood, isn't it? You know. Whereas if it was, say, the tobacco sunburst with the back of the neck all sort of painted black, they could have painted over it. Yeah. I had a Les Paul Studio a couple of years ago that I played for a couple of years and then moved on, and that had a headstock break, but they'd painted over it, and you had to really, really look to see it. Yeah, like I said, there's no sort of. I'm not saying Aquiths have done a bad job of this. They did the best they can because I've broken it in an awkward place, but that sort of leaves me in a predicament now.
What do you buy?
Yeah, essentially. You say that jokingly, but
It's going to go at some point.
It's going to go at some point, and every day I've come to it this week, and it's all the strings have gone flat, which means something's moving.
Yeah.
Now, this is one of those, when you notice sort of in anything in your life, sort of monkey business starts to happen in one way or another, and you kind of go, that's
odd. Is that bookshelf a bit further along than it should be?
That's odd. Yeah, that's odd. That was this for the sort of back half, first sort of over the weekend and first half of this week. And then I started giving it to a couple of people that I teach. And I gave it to Nigel. Hello, Nigel.
Well, he plays one as well.
Yes, he's got one as well. And that was why I wanted him to play it. So he plays a J45 day in, day out. I mean, he's just got a Taylor, but...
his allegiance is with the flag.
Yeah, yeah. But... as soon as he sat on his knee, he went, the head's moving on that. That's coming away, is that? As soon as So that sort of confirmed my suspicions, and I purposely haven't told you because I wanted to talk about it in the podcast. Now, that presents me with an interesting problem. Yes, I can probably have it repaired again. Will it stick? I don't know. So that presents me with a predicament because I was going to have this. I was going to play this guitar forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And you know how like Willie Nelson's guitar looks
Trigger's
like
broom.
So Willie Nelson's guitar is called Trigger. He's literally one hole in the top of the guitar because he's played it that much. This guitar was going to be the equivalent of that. And it's sort of taking my wind out of my sails a little bit with it. I'm sort of like, So I can have it fixed. It might stay, it might not. But I'm going to be throwing the case of this in the back of the van to go do gigs. And if somebody drops it and I'm 150, 200 miles away from home and I open that case and the head's not attached to the guitar, that's not good enough for somebody that gets paid to go and play. So that presents me with... I'm going to have to replace it at some point. It probably won't be any time in too soon because I'll probably do the same. I'll probably go for something of equal kind of value and quality because I do use them a lot. But then do I try something different? So that's kind of been in the front of my head this week. And it's sort of like I've had a good week apart from that.
That's a roll for sure.
It's one of those and I don't know what to do with it. Do I just keep the guitar as an ornament? Do I... write a really kind of honest eBay advert and go because there's so many people. I imagine some people watching this podcast that was like, oh, I'd have a go. I could fix that.
A couple of years ago, I bought a knackered old Jag. Like it had an MOT, it had lots of problems.
Sorry,
but
I
thought
you meant Fender Jaguar.
No, it's car.
Jag,
sorry, yeah, it's like
Jag.
we buy. It's let's call it a $2,000 guitar new. It might be £500 now.
Yeah,
but it's still that product just because it's got some issues.
The general consensus is when you break the head of a guitar, regardless of how well it's been repaired, its second-hand value cut by 50% again.
Easily,
that's the general. So look at it this way: I bought a Les Paul, that black Les Paul Studio, even though it was an absolutely fine guitar, and the new custodian of that guitar is really enjoying it, and it's more. Arguably, some people say that the heads are more stable once they've been repaired than they actually. It all depends on how it's been broken.
Yep.
I give £350 for that, for a Gibson Les Paul. But it's had the head broken. It's one of those, isn't it? Yeah. It's kind of like, if you're willing to kind of gloss over a couple of imperfections, you can.
Well, that's the thing. If it's your guitar and it's been like the past 18 months, you've had it repaired, it doesn't matter to you now. It's repaired and it's playing. You can get used to the battle scars on the headstock.
We'll move on in a second, but I think there's a bit of freedom that kind of comes with that. Do you remember that Saab I had, that black Saab?
Yeah.
Right, yes. So I gave £700 for arguably the world's
dodgiest
Saab. I just needed something for a couple of months because I was between cars. I just needed 4 wheels. And there wasn't a straight panel on it. Somebody had tried to wrap it in a carbon fibre wrap and somebody, the gentleman that I bought it off said that it had one careful lady owner. He absolutely
didn't.
But I was so freed by that because I could park it anywhere. It didn't lock. The car didn't lock. So I'd just dump it in a supermarket car park anywhere. Wasn't bothered about scratching it on bushes, going down lanes or anything like that. And then you compare that to having a nice car. You try and look after it. It's almost a bit of a burden.
But then you couldn't mistreat a J45. I'm not saying you have and you would. But
well, to be honest, I have, but not intentionally. I am gormless. I broke the head by tripping up over the stand that it was in, and the stand and everything went over. I am a liability sometimes with that kind of stuff. So yeah, watch this space. We'll see. I'm going to think. Like I say, I'm not really in a position to replace it, but I'm going to give Tristan a ring and see what he can do. But yeah, I'm just a bit like. Yeah, it's just sort of made me go a bit flat this week.
Get me a little violin out for you.
Yeah. So yeah, there we go.
So what's our technical focus this week then, James?
So our technical focus is on bar chords. So we're going to talk about the E and A shapes, major and minor. And you've put on the crib sheet one size fits all. So I'll back this to you because this was your idea. So after you.
So bar chords, when you're learning to play guitar, we're always dragged up believing that they are unattainable. They're on the top shelf. They're hard. Stay away. You are not worthy. But actually, a couple of weeks and you can really get a handle on what to do and how to play them. So a bit of theory first. So don't switch off. We'll come back. Now this is useful if you're on guitar, bass, whatever. Let's start on the E. You want to learn the notes on the E and A string. Now you don't have to do a technical exercise to do these. But by knowing them, you'll know what chord to play. Now, I'm going to rush through this really quickly so it doesn't get that boring. We have what we call E and A shapes. Now, let's say I'm going to start on the E string. We know E major, hopefully. And we also know E minor. So E major, E minor. Now, we refer to the bar chords as E shapes because let's say you're looking at a chord progression, it's your favourite song ever, and it says G sharp minor. And you go, oh, God, that's it. I can't play that song
We
now.
don't do G sharp. We don't do F.
Yeah.
We don't have any of that nonsense
No.
here. We'll get you
So
there.
I know, because, 17 years down the rabbit hole, I've got F on the E string. First fret is F, second fret is F sharp, third fret is G, fourth fret is G sharp. Well, what if I make an E minor chord, but on the fourth fret?
So
Now, there's more to it than that.
I just want to pause that there. So what George has done there essentially is with his index finger, he's creating his own capo.
Capo, yeah.
Like, is that the fourth fret, George?
That's the fourth fret, yeah.
So if I take this capo and I'll put it on the fourth fret and make an E minor shape,
That's what I've done, yeah.
It's a G sharp minor chord because the lowest note of the chord doesn't always work like that, but it does for this example.
The root in this example.
Yeah, the root is on the fourth fret. And all George is doing is he's removing said capo and he's using his index finger to play
To bar it. Yeah.
So those would be E-shaped chords.
E-shaped, so that's my mentioned G sharp minor. That sounds really scary. Let's look at A minor.
But then, you kick it up a fret.
Kick it up. That's my A minor. Now, I can make that A major. Because I've taken that. If I move my finger, if you're watching, I'm just taking that barring finger off and I move my fingers back to square one and I've got E major. Slightly an unusual one because I'm not using my first finger. Right, that's a little bit of work. But you've just learnt 24 chords because you do 12 majors, 12 minors, that's 24.
And I think also, it might be one of those where, you don't have to... I'm not interested in playing a C-sharp minor chord. But what you could do is if you've got two friends jamming, I could play A minor down here, you could play A minor over there.
So the band I used to be in at high school, we most of the time doubled up on guitar parts. So we'd take it in turns. I'd be playing a song sort of north of the 12th fret as a bar chord and he'd be playing open chords and it just gives you a bigger sound. Think of octave pedals.
Yeah,
just makes the sound bigger.
If you've more than one guitar player in your band, you should be playing the same chords but at different points on the neck and it just sort of opens it up. It's almost kind of indirectly doing that whole 12-string kind of thing. That's what a 12-string guitar does, doesn't it? It plays everything on an octave above what you're doing. So I think we should do an entire episode on bar chords, George. For those of... If that's something that you're interested in, let us know in the comments below. But I think... by taking those, because it ties into the caged system, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. There's a lot more theory that goes with it than we're making out today.
But have a go with that E chord, E minor chord, A minor chord, and just have a go kick it up a fret, and try and sort of create your own, sort of be your own capo.
Yeah.
And see. The only bit of advice before we move on that I'd give for you there is the hardest place you'll ever play a bar chord is on the first fret, and that's because of the nut of the guitar. Try it a little bit higher up, but when you're barring, we're taught to play notes and fret notes and have his finger in the middle of the fret, aren't we? With bar chords, if you imagine that your finger's in the middle of the fret and the fret wire's either side, go towards your pickups or towards your sound hole. So instead of a 50-50 split, it's more a kind of 75-25
Gives you a bit more
split,
room.
and it will give you a little bit more. So... quick story time around that. There's a lady that I teach. I'm not sure if she wants to be named, so I'm not going to name her. She's the longest standing student Kirklees Guitar School's had. I've taught her for 11 years. She's a very, very capable, good guitarist, and she has always struggled with the F bar chord, as many guitar players have.
Can I butt into this story time? James used to teach me way back when. We got to this song.
When George was half the size that he was and I had hair.
Yeah. Then we got to a song and I said, oh, F. And you said, that there you go, F. And I went, oh, really? And you went, yep, done. I learnt that shape. And that's because you didn't say, sorry, mate, that's a bar chord. Leave it alone. Yeah. I'm not an expert psychology or anything like that, but I wasn't told it was difficult.
So with the student in question, I did the polar opposite. Right. I said, these chords are really difficult. They're going to take a little bit of time, but persevere and we'll get there. And it took her years to get that. And I think what I'd done is I'd sort of unintentionally talked her out of it before we'd even begun.
You were just trying to get yourself more lessons.
Absolutely. It was Yeah, I used to walk to people's houses for lessons, and now we're here. It's mental. So yeah, right. Let's go on to neck deep. So what's the neck deep segment? What we're going to talk about?
We're talking about guitar picks. You use them every day. We use them every day. There's different sizes, shapes, colours, thicknesses. People have their own preference. Some people don't care. So I've brought a couple down with me, and you've got a couple there as well. Mm-hmm. So I'd just like to start with what pick I use 99.99% of the time.
Okay.
I'm a firm believer that I've found now my pick. I found what pick I want to use, and I'm sticking with it. So the pick in question is a Sharp Dunlop 0.73 of a millimetre. I mentioned this the other week. It was a happy coincidence that I got these. I bought 200 for £2 when a music store was closing down. At first, I thought, oh, that's interesting. Andy, who teaches here, calls them knives, because they are a bit sharp, if I'm honest. But I just like this. I like the thickness. I like the size. It works for me. I've got down here a standard 0.73 of a millimetre, another Dunlop.
So just for those of you
not watching,
that doesn't have a sharp point.
Think of it like a pizza slice. The Sharp looks like a normal pizza slice. The regular pick looks like you've taken a bite out of the front of it because it's not as pointy. I can still play with this normal Sharp one, but my preference is now always going to be this. But some players like to use different picks for different applications. Mm-hmm. You have more of a general approach to picks, am I right in thinking?
Yeah, so I, just in my whole attitude towards playing the guitar, I tend to use, I've got a big coffee jar in the live room for the school, and people leave picks, I sort of inherit things from people and plectrums and all kinds of stuff, and occasionally you buy things occasionally online and they come with free picks, so they all just go in the jar. And essentially, I just kind of put my hand in the jar and pick whatever's coming out. Now, I do have some that I like, and occasionally I do experiment with different sizes, different gauges. It's kind of like every sort of 12 months I go down that rabbit hole of what am I really into. I tend to have two different kinds of pick that I use. I like the 73.73.
Yeah. No, that's what we call a medium, wouldn't we?
There's or a Fender medium.
There's thin, medium, thick, and extra, but I'd say that's medium, isn't it?
Yeah, this is a Dunlop. This is a 0.88, but I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. Okay. In my opinion, a good guitar player should be able to pick anything up and just be able to use it. But some are a little bit more optimal than others. So this is just these sort of standard plectrums with the rounded end are just my sort of go-to acoustic guitar pick. Mm-hmm. When I'm being a little bit more technical, we were saying before we put the podcast on that I've been practicing this job on a master lick where I'm sort of doing this cascading.
Oh, you're brave. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cascading, pentatonic. Now that's relatively slow. I don't know whether I can embarrass myself on. It's quite brisk.
Yes.
Quite brisk. When I'm trying to play like that, I tend to use these little stubby, what they call jazz picks. Now, a jazz pick, imagine you took your regular guitar pick, like we were speaking about, the regular shape, and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, you essentially probably a factor of 2 to 1.
That's more
the size of the pick.
That's more a 5p piece than a 10p or 50p.
Yeah, that's a really good way to think about it. But it's also got the sharp tip. Now these are kind of a halfway house. Dunlop do these what they call jazz picks that are a little bit rounded. I like those when I'm working on really technical things.
Okay.
Let's say I was going to throw a couple of songs out there. If I was playing Line Eyes by the Eagles, I'd probably play with a regular plectrum.
Because it's not too demanding.
Yeah, there's a lot of strumming. You know, even on electric guitars, a lot of strumming, but I can still use it. If it's something like, I don't know, This Charming Man, something that's got quite a lot of sort of, it's quite fiddly and quite precise, I tend to use a jazz pick for that. But I purposely will practice with either almost as a little bit. It's almost a bit masochistic, you know, that sort of just to make sure that I can do it. So.
See, this 0.73 of a mil, I play 10 gauge 10 strings on all my electric guitars. I play 12s on my acoustics. When I'm gigging on an acoustic with 12s, I will still use this 0.73 of a mil pick because it flexes a little bit more, but I still get a good amount of chunk out of it. Now, I've also got 2 other picks down here. This purple one is a 2mm Dunlop. This is, now some people argue for metal playing, this is what you want.
Well, Ingvar uses those.
Yeah.
And he's one of the fastest in the West.
Now,
So.
you won't be able to, potentially not be able to see, but this is a thick pick. I can't even bend it. Not proclaimed to have the strongest wrist strength in the world, but I can't bend this pick. And even acoustically, it's really giving my strings a hard time. I would never use something like that. I don't even know why I've got this, to be honest. I probably stole it from a music shop by accident. It's really overdriving my strings, making them vibrate too much. If you had the biggest dreadnought in the world, or a jumbo on 13s, sort of Stevie Ray Vaughan MTV Unplugged spec, I might use a pick this thick. For strumming, definitely not picking, for me.
Yeah, the only time I'd use a pick like that. And we're not saying that's wrong, by the way. This is just personal preference.
We don't have any thin picks here, and some people love a thinner pick.
Yeah, and I went through a phase of using them just for the sake of it,
I used to have 0.5 mil. It was a silver. It came with some strings, and it had little grooves on it, and it was horrible because you could hear it flexing. My first guitar that I got for Christmas, that black Strat that I had the other week, I didn't have any picks, so I used my advent calendar and folded one of the doors to make a pick, and it lasted about 3 chords.
Yeah.
Before it disintegrated.
When I went to uni, we had a. In fact, when we get a little bit more established, I'm going to see if we can get him as a guest. You know, my teacher when I was at university, I went to the Institute of Modern Music at Bristol, and he got us to do an exercise where you took a fiver out of your wallet and you folded it over, and you tried to play up and down your scales in, you know, doing technical exercises, and it was so thin and so flimsy. You had to be absolutely on the money to do it. So, yeah, that was an interesting... And I've done that with a few students before. So, there's no right or wrong, but I don't... I'd just like to sort of finish that with saying, like, don't have your special pick.
No, I've got some students who have a bag of mixed, and they'll go, I like this one. They're all 0.5 mil. Just one's purple, one's green. Now, if you like a colour, fine. Like that's, but as you say, don't have that special, because eventually it'll wear down. I used to have a special pick.
Well, you'll lose it.
Yeah, you'll lose it, or it'll wear down. I've got a few old picks that are circular now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know Sean was posting in the Facebook group about playing some That's Entertainment, the Jam.
Yes.
And he was playing quite finicky 16th notes, like that kind of thing. And I understand why you want a thinner pick for that, Sean. Personally, I'd persevere. I'd stick with... I like pain. I'd like to stick with something, but I understand why a thinner pick would help you out.
Well, it's how... It's not necessarily the thickness of the plectrum that alters the sound. It's how tightly you're holding the plectrum.
Yeah, it's the being ductile. Now, the ones we use will flex if you want them to, but they'll stay fairly rigid as well. So and then you get Brian May playing a sixpence.
Yeah, and I found a sixpence in a...
when you were back in 1956.
I found it in a... they were selling them in these sort of bric-a-brac kind of antique kind of shops somewhere. And I think it might have been £1.50 or something like that. And I had a Vox at the time, and I was like, do you know what? I'm going to buy one, and I'm just going to try it and see. And it does make a difference, but it's horrendous for your strings.
Yeah, I've used... See, this guitar, if I ever want to play Queen, I will use this telly. Some reason on the middle position, it does kind of sound like a red special.
I think a telly is a very good substitute for a red special if you've not got one.
Regardless of the phase.
I'm still playing that white one at the minute that was on episode 6. Mm-hmm. No, episode 5. It was on episode 5. And one of the groups is doing Crazy Little Thing Called Love, and they're all strumming through it. So I'll start doing this. Well, I'll start doing the solo, and it sounded just like the record. It sounded great.
Yeah, I've tried using a 5p piece to recreate that.
Right.
And it kind of it feels weird, but you do get that really nice jangly metallic sound. Don't have any coins on me at the minute.
Tellies are so underrated as guitars. I mean, I am a Strat man at heart, and I know you are as well. But
see, I say I'm a Strat man, but I have 2 tellies, and there's a reason for that.
Do you know, it sort of dawned on me after that left my mouth. I was like, he actually has more tellies than he does Strats.
So you don't actually own a telly?
No,
I haven't done
a
for a
very
while.
Complicated relationship with tellies. Did I explain that in episode 5?
I remember you had that Sunburst one that you put 11s on, and you killed it. So I remember that vividly. I mean, it was like 6 years ago now. You had a Sunburst telly with a black pick guard.
I didn't kill it. No, I didn't kill
Or
it.
did
I
it just
tried
not
11s.
play as nice?
It just didn't play great, and I took it to, this is before Acoustic guitar setups were at the top, I took it to String Surgeon at Horbury Bridge, and they set that up for me, and then it was amazing. Fun fact, I actually sold that guitar to open the unit at Kirklees Guitar School. That's what happened to that
For your
guitar.
cheeky deposit.
So yeah, that was it.
Right.
That was it. I needed £1,000, so that's what I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So fair trade.
Yeah.
But I do. It comes up on my Facebook memories occasionally. Does that guitar, and I'm just like, yeah. But no, I've got a bit of a. I've got a complicated. It's complicated my relationship with Tellers.
Guitar picks. It's whatever floats your boat. I think it's quite vague. Whatever floats your boat.
Yeah, and there's no right or wrong way to do it, but just don't back yourself into that corner of I have my special pick and I can only play with my special pick, because if you're sort of in that hypothetical campfire scenario where somebody gives you a guitar and you go, oh, I ain't got my special pick, which I've known people do. Don't be that guy, and don't play Wonderwall either. Nobody wants to be that guy.
See, I've never actually learnt Wonderwall.
Have you not?
I've taught it, but right, I can play it, but I've never purposely gone, right, I'm going to learn it.
Yeah, but you don't strike me as somebody that sort of into Oasis, really.
No, Don't Look Back in Anger was... We used to play Don't Look Back in Anger in the bands I used to be in at high school, and we used to like it. And then, tragic though it is, the Manchester thing happened, and every pub was playing it, every gig, and we sort of kicked it out of the set list because no one wanted to hear it again.
I once sat in for an Oasis tribute act called Oasis.
I know what you mean.
They were very, 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 very good, and it was one of those trailer stage type gigs at a festival.
Rustic.
But it's the first time that I'd ever played and it was outside, dark, and I could just see a field full of people, and I'm stood on this stage with my SG and that little that Fender Deluxe that I had, that Hot Rod Deluxe I had.
Nice colour.
And I had it turned up to about 6, and it just sounded, because when you're playing outside, you can afford to give your amps a little bit more because it doesn't go anywhere. But the trailer stage was at sort of eye level for a couple of people in the front, and I hit the first. I played the first bit of Supersonic. Oh no, it's majoring. And this guy just went, it was just obviously
Sets
a little bit too
yeah.
much for him. So anyway, right, well, we better move on, John.
That's quite waffly, but whatever floats your boat.
Plectrums.
Tone Talk.
Underrated guitar players.
Bringing it back.
Yeah, it was... we enjoyed the Mick Ronson and... Josh Turner from episode...
Acoustics. 4.
Anyway, they're all melting into one. But so who else do you think's an underrated guitar player?
So again, that like Mick Ronson, you've probably heard them a lot, and they do exist in wider circles. Wilco Johnson is my player. Very strange looking guy. He's like a thinner version of Uncle Fester, the way I can describe how he looked. He's not with us anymore. He died 3 years ago now. He's done a lot of stuff with Roger Daltrey. He did do towards the end of his career. He was around in the day. The BBC did a lot with him back in the 70s, sort of describing guitar techniques. He had a very unusual technique, but crucially he played for a group called Dr. Feelgood. Now, it's not like Dr. Feelgood, it's jump in the Cotina, we're going down the crown and watch the football. Yeah. That kind of... Yeah. If you watch any videos of Dr. Feelgood, it's nasty. Like, you think the Sex Pistols were rough.
But it's got that sort of... It's really sort of deep-seated in old school R&B, rhythm and blues stuff, isn't it?
Wilco dedicates his playing to a bloke called Mick Green, who played for the Pirates. See, that was very clean cut in the 60s. If you look at the Pirates in the 70s, playing Shaking All Over, they are on some stuff. Right, it's really cool. Yeah. It's like Virgin on Metal.
Right, okay.
But anyway, Wilco Johnson, he had this playing style where he didn't use a pick, so he wouldn't have liked this podcast, but he did this thing. He played down and up with his down on his fingers, up on his thumb. And everything he played seemed to be in G. And he'd play what I call the Hendrix chord, which is a bar chord, but with the thumb lifted over the top. That were his sort of riffs.
Yeah, lots sort of like minor pentatonic.
It's almost ska because of that rhythm. But he had a song with Dr. Feelgood called Roxette. Now, I can't do him justice, but he'd be playing that riff. Now I'm doing him hitting the 5 hammering onto the octave from the 3rd fret, and then hitting the rest of the chord, and that just goes around a 1-4-5. Very strange characteristic. I was saying to you earlier, he speaks like the pub landlord, Al Murray. He was very unusual, but his playing is really underrated. That's why I'm bringing him up.
And I've never seen anybody play like that. He's kind of got the sort of finger style, sort of flamenco style of Knopfler, but it's more kind of R&B.
It's
really
more
cool.
sledgehammer.
Yes.
I don't know what his hands were made of, but to do that for 50 years is, you could build ships out of his fingertips by the end of that.
Probably.
But yeah, that's my underrated guitarist. I should probably do more homework. They used to play in Home Firth, Dr. Feelgood. Another singer died in the 90s.
Yeah, I regret not going to see them.
I must admit, if you're watching, my dad always recommended, you play guitar, you're like Wilco Johnson. I sort of shrugged it off. But yeah, I've started looking into it now, and he's a good player. So I'll be doing some more homework on Wilco Johnson for sure. And he played a telly, that's why I've got this one here
Excellent.
today. So what about you? Because I haven't heard of your player.
You haven't heard of your player,
I will have heard
but you've heard him. So he's called Ry Cooder. Ry Cooder is an American guitarist, most known for playing slide guitar.
Okay.
Have you seen I don't know the year, the movie Crossroads?
Is that with Steve Vai doing the battle?
Yeah. Right. All the slide guitar parts Ry Cooder
Done by
played.
that guy. So he's playing the Karate Kids part.
Yes. Ralph Macchio, is that what he's called, I think?
Sorry. I should know, but I don't. I've seen the battle.
Yes.
That's all I've seen.
Right, okay. He did all of the, pretty much the vast majority of the soundtrack as well.
Okay, cool.
That sort of really kind of Mississippi Delta slide guitar stuff, but it's all on...
Harmonica.
Now, yeah, but you think of that kind of music all on a steel guitar, or a resonator guitar, but he'd use sort of Fender-style instruments. He had a guitar called the Cudacaster, which was basically it was a Strat with a pickup in the neck for which was almost like a Gretsch Filtertron-style pickup.
Okay, cool.
And he sort of more or less exclusively playing open tunings with sliding. He's got a song called Feeling Bad Blues. Right. I want you to go and listen to that, everybody. It's a it's some sort of Fender Blackface Tweed amp, wound up but not to the point where it's breaking up too much. Loads of tremolo, loads of reverb, and it's just somebody playing a blues in E.
Right.
But he's doing all the sort of... Yeah, it's one of the most beautiful guitar pieces I've ever heard.
Nice.
I can't stress enough. It's great. So yeah, go check out Ry Cooder. He also had a long career playing for, lots of kind of Wild West themes and things like that.
There is something
he
about...
had a really long career. I think he's still active.
There's something about a swampy blues that you just can't deny with the harmonica and all of that sort of stuff.
But he's the guy that a lot of people who are now doing that thing, Ariel Posen. Have you seen him before? Right, you should check him out. He's really cool. A lot of the people that are sort of flying the flag for that style of music now directly learnt from
another
guys
underrated.
like Ry Cooder.
His surname's Trucks. He plays a red SG.
Derek Trucks.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
His slide guitar, you could just melt.
Yeah.
There's a clip of him playing with B.B. King / Simply Red and John Mayer. And he's just jamming because B.B. King gigs towards the end of his career. The band would just sit on an A blues for 2 hours very steadily. And they'd come in and exchange stories. And there's just Derek playing this slide stuff. And even everyone just stops in awe. And you see John Mayer going, I'm out. I can't compete.
I saw a thing of John Mayer recently who said, he was tired of sort of going to sort of private engagements and him being the guitar player, and it sort of wore on him a little bit. Everyone's like, oh, it's John Mayer, he's such a great guitar player. And he says, I went to a restaurant one night and Jeff Beck was there. And he's like, I've never been as comfortable in my life because I'm not the best guitar player in the room anymore. All people don't think I'm the best guitar player in the room.
One thing John Mayer does, we're going on a bit, in his, like when he does these live streams on YouTube or his socials, he'll say, so you just want to take this really simple riff. So just start with that. Really, everyone's going, yeah, okay. He doesn't do it intentionally.
I think a lot of people think of John Mayer initially as sort of guitar pop kind of style. But I mean, he went to Berkeley. He's a player.
Yeah.
Proper, solid player. But it's all, underneath it all, it's all blues.
His Guess I Just Feel Like is a cracking track if you've heard that. It was one of the newer stuff.
I've been listening to the new stuff a little bit more recently, and it's taken a bit of warming up. But I think I'm getting there. I think I'm getting to it. So, right then, let's go to our Pick Our Brain segment.
Certainly.
This is our audience questions. So, I'll start, if that's okay, George.
As in, are you asking me or am I asking
I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
So this is from Alistair on the Facebook group. How do I determine the key of the song?
Ooh, this comes back to Alistair, yeah?
Yep.
This comes back to that argument about relative pitch and perfect pitch, but it doesn't have to. I sent you a clip of a social clip the other week where someone was playing a song in E, and for some reason I just knew it was E. And I was sat at my phone. Now, you've all laughed at your parents screaming at the TV, and you thought, I'm never going to be that guy. It's happening. Because this guy was playing an E jam, and the other player was going, oh, what? And I said, it's in E. Oh, where is it? It's in E.
And this
it's
is
E.
the guy,
the guy trying to work out the key.
Yeah.
And I think they're hamming it up a little bit. But sometimes you just know. Right, that sounds really like, wow, mythical, but it's not. The way I would find a key, Alistair, if you can play scales, which I'm sure you can because you've done the improv stuff. James, should we do it live?
Yep.
I'm going to turn away because I'll be able to see. So I'm looking down my camera. This is how I would genuinely find the key of a song to solo over it.
What do you want? Just a vamp on one chord?
Or a chord progression if you like.
Okay.
So what I'd do, I'd find the root notes and see what works.
That didn't tell
So I'm in
long,
B
did it?
flat. So all I did, can you play that B flat again? No. Okay, I got lucky because you were still on the one chord. So my B flat is always going to be B flat. Let's say you went to the E flat, the 4 chord. Now, B flat still works, but I could have found an E flat. Oh, I'm in B flat. E flat. Oh, no, I'm not. You have to listen to it for a while to really get... Because I've been looking at... It's a great tune. In the Mood for Dancing, the Nolan Sisters.
All right. Okay.
That's got a key change in it. And I thought, oh, it's in B major. I'm in the mood. Oh, no, now we've gone to D. And you have to take a while. So that's how I would do it. I'd use the scales, the root notes, and I'd just sort of sit and have... When you think, oh, I think I'm in B flat now, have a little noodle. If it doesn't sound right, you know you're not in the right key. I could have thought you might have been in... I could have thought you were in G, because that's the position 5 of the major pentatonic. It would work over the top. So that's how I would do it, Alistair. I'd noodle about.
I've got a slightly different way of doing it.
Okay.
If we do that again, but we'll do it from my perspective.
Yeah,
so I'm not going to look at George's fretboard, but what I am going to do is George is going to start playing in a random key. Mm-hmm. We'll keep it in a blues.
Yeah,
George, because it's a really good platform and it ties into everything else that we've spoken about. But instead of playing in the middle of the neck, was it on the D string you found?
Yes, so the D string for the root
I'm going to
note.
use the low E string.
Okay.
I think every guitar player, when they want to learn the notes of the neck, and it's something that I'm thinking about doing a course on, but I've not really figured out the best way to do it
It's
yet.
a long journey.
And it's one of those where I need to do it. If I'm going to do it, I need to knock it out of the park first, otherwise I'm going to confuse everybody. But anyway, back on task. I'm going to start fishing for the note that I think that sounds well with it, that sounds well with what George is playing on the low E string, and then I'm going to use that as the first note of my minor pentatonic scale.
Yep.
Okay? Right, George. I think that's A flat. Is it A flat?
I'll try again.
You're going to tell me again, aren't you? C sharp. Right, okay. Let's try that again for me.
Another key or...
Yeah, you caught me off guard there because
Okay.
that chord was so high pitched. Can
Yeah.
you try something a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
bit lower for me? F sharp. You see, straight away, like you need to. I'm banking on your chords being in the lower register of the guitar.
Yeah.
When it's a little bit higher, it's a bit harder to hear.
So that's
Now,
what a
that
song would
A-flat
do.
Did work. It would have worked a bit better, but I think lots of experimentation and lots of listening. Don't use your head too much. Use your ear.
There's a chap in our group who's had some work done on his hand and he unfortunately can't play for a
Yes.
while.
Gary? Is it Gary?
I know
think
you
it's
can't
Gary.
play, mate, but use this as a way to train your ears. There's a lot of ear exercises you can do to train your ear. I'm very fortunate that I've always been sort of use my ear to play, which you tried to bat out me because it got to a point. I've got a student who I teach. He's only 11, but instead of reading the tab, he'll find it first, which is great. It's really good to play by ear, and that's how I make a living. Someone says, "I'd like to learn Autumn Leaves."
Yeah, but
I'll
somebody
listen to
like that, and because I've covered that student for you as well. But what we run the risk of there is potentially him turning into a cowboy. We need, it comes to, you need to have some. I think he's going to have a future in music, and we've got that obligation to him. Even though he's 11 and he don't get it, we've got that obligation to him to make sure that he knows his stuff.
But for any player, you need both. You need to have a good ear, and you need to be able to read it and understand what you're playing as well. Now, don't get me wrong. If I play, I love this riff. I don't know, right, that's an E flat, that's a C. I'm not thinking about every note I'm playing, but there is a point where you need to have an understanding of what you're playing, or how to read it at least, rather than just listening. So, yeah, Alistair, how do you determine a key of a song? It's not quite guesswork, but it nearly is.
It is in that sense, but also if you get a little bit of music theory under your belt as well, you'll find that it's a little bit the chords that you can hear and you can pick out of it are clues which lead you to more chords. Another
thing as well. Okay, you might have found. You might not know you're in B flat. That's when the notes on the fretboard come in. Then you can work out what key you're in. If you're new to the improv challenge that we ran in February, you might only know A and G or A and B. You might not know what the first fret is, so that's
we did it in module 5 of the all of the. If you have a look at module 5 in the PDF on the Facebook group for that, there's a diagram with all the notes on the low E string for your reference. If anybody wants me to put that up again as its own thing, please let me know. Right, question 2.
2 for you. So from Sean, this one coming up
Sean.
a lot, Sean. Key changes in songs. Why are they used? For the vocals, to grab your attention. Modulation, key changes.
Yeah, so oftentimes it's an old-fashioned sort of songwriter's trick to maintain the interest of the listener. Think of some really notable key changes. The key change at the back end of Living on a Prayer. All of a sudden, it's you've been enjoying 3 or 4 minutes of this song, and then all of a sudden, it just seems to have this like massive lift.
It gets injected right at the end.
That's it, yeah, and that tends to be what I see that used like that most. But also, I think some people will use key changes to literally try and stitch a couple of sections together. If somebody's writing a song and hypothetically they've got 2 really cool ideas that they want to put together, but they're in different keys, sometimes we have to get a little bit creative with how we get there. Sometimes you can change between the major and the minor key depending on the section. Think of Norwegian Wood.
Yes.
The Norwegian Wood's in E.
Yeah.
The bit that everybody thinks of is that's in E major. And then it goes to the minor for the yes.
That's the thing. I'm sure you get onto it. Some key changes move up in tones and semitones. They just go. Say you're in G, it might then go to G sharp or A. You can move in minor thirds, major thirds. You can move in the scale.
There's no rule book. It's the songwriter's discretion. There's another song. I've
got a few examples for this.
I can't remember who sang it originally. We play it in the Northern Soul thing. It's called The Snake.
Okay.
Now, it essentially will sit, it'll go between chord 1 and chord 5 for the whole progression, but then all of a sudden the band will be playing. And I call this an elbow transposition because you just kick it up.
Right.
You just give your guitar a bash and you kick it up, and then all of a sudden it's in E flat.
Okay,
and
it's just
play
exciting.
That for a bit, and then it'll go again. It'll go up again. It's a songwriting. There's no sort of logic behind it other than it's at the songwriter's discretion and they're just looking for a different sound.
Yeah, it's not for the vocals because if you're in a key already, you can sing that key. And it is, I think, Man in the Mirror, Michael Jackson, that final chorus goes up a major third. Everything goes from like colour to 4K. Pour Some Sugar on Me, Def Leppard. Joe Elliott sings up one more tone and it sounds like everything goes higher. It's not actually a key change, you know.
Is it not?
No, all they do, that song's in E. Not Teenage Dirtbag. But the bridge goes to E. No, it goes to D. shouts up one more tone, and all he does is go from a D, because we've been conditioned now to hearing this D in the bridge. Take a bottle. It stays in E the whole way through.
Yeah.
It's not actually a key change, but because we've heard that D from that sounds lower, and then that sounds like it's that injection.
All I'm hearing is, what is it? That's all I'm hearing.
Don't get me started so morbid.
But yeah, okay. Yeah. So
that's.
I hope that answers your question, Sean. There's not really much logic. Us as educators, we have a responsibility to go, oh, well, they're going between the third and the fifth.
Which I tried to
the
do.
Sixth. But a lot of these songs that we love were written by just normal people that didn't have music education, because it was at a time before you could go to university to learn how to play the guitar.
See, that really annoys me, You look at George Harrison. That's another point. I saw a post this morning. It said, if the Beatles released their first album today, they'd have been John and Ringo would have been born in 2002, George would have been in 2005, and Paul would have been born in 2004. That's like a revolting kind of fact.
Yeah, that's very
sobering.
Very sobering
but
for some of us.
But the point I was going to make is that, excuse me, George Harrison, he's playing all this hybrid picking because, this sounds great. He didn't know what he was doing, I'd like to think, until later on in his career. He turned into a very accomplished songwriter in the Travelling Wilburys and stuff like that, because he had the time to learn it. He's just thrown into a club in Hamburg, play something cool, and you didn't know what you were playing. That kind of annoys me, because I'm nowhere near as successful as them and never will be. But. So
I did a gig sort of in a similar style too. So the Hamburg gigs that the Beatles did was essentially they played at a hotel. It's like a hotel type vibe,
it was rough.
Like a house band type vibe. When I worked on the ships, it was kind of like that. Now, the general consensus is the Beatles really learned how to play when they went to Hamburg.
Mm-hmm.
It's because of all the down. They were doing 4 sets a night anyway, which when
tough.
you are playing that much, but also all the downtime during the day.
Mm-hmm.
When I was on the ships, I was playing so much in the day, and I do think there's two points in my playing where I really, really advanced, did most of my sort of moving forward very, very quickly. First of which, teenager, sat in front of the telly watching The Simpsons. The second one is when I was on the ships for 6 months, because there's literally nothing else to do. And I just played guitar over and over and over and over again.
You mentioned there's a bloke, we'll move on, there's a bloke who lives around in our area who was actually a drummer in Hamburg on the bill with the Beatles.
Wow.
Like, say they were called the Hurricanes or the Scorpion, another The band. And they just didn't take off like the Beatles or Jerry and the Pacemakers. But he lives around here, he's at local pub quite a lot. He's getting on a bit now, but the stories he's got of like sleeping next to John Lennon just because there wasn't any other room on the floor or in the hotel. Yeah, some
in
cool
a time
stuff.
where you could get away. I say, there wasn't. Mind you, it still happens. There's still a lot of people in the music industry being taken advantage of. But, hey-ho. Right then, I think we should wrap today's podcast.
Are we doing a riff of the week, or are we wrapping up?
We are.
Because you gave us a pretty cool riff last week.
Yes, we had a look at the Monkeys last week.
Yeah, it looks nice on your 335.
Yeah, if I can remember how to play it, it'll look even nice. Yeah. What are you going to teach us how to play?
So, I'm going to teach us Walk This Way.
Right.
This is one of the riffs that I remember when I just played it forever, just over and over again. This song came out in the 70s by Aerosmith, Walk This Way, and they were kind of, for want of a better term, on their arse. Run DMC came along and kick-started their career, just like the Beach Boys when Kokomo came out with Tom Cruise and all that. They were flatlining. So the riff in question, after the hip-hop drum beat from Run DMC... Oh, no, don't do that.
Nice.
So, what I've got, I'm using my second and third fingers on this. So my first finger's kind of hovering over the nut. And I'm playing open A, and then 1, and then a 2, and then 2 on the D. 1 and 2 and then again, and then an open E. So that's my phrase repeated. And then does it again. And then combines the E and the, well, it's two E's. The D is an E octave. So it's quite a quick one. And speaking of key changes, it hits an A and then unexpectedly goes to a C blues. So it's very sharp. It really grabs your attention, that goes to that. So that's my riff of the week. Have a listen. I'm sure you'll have heard it loads of times.
Joe Perry's a great guitar player. He sort of slept on Aerosmith.
See,
for a long time.
You've got Dream On, and Don't Wanna Miss a Thing. Dude looks like a lady was written about Vince from Motley Crue.
Was
lead
it?
singer. Yeah,
God, look at him now.
yeah. We're not. That's another podcast in itself.
I think I remember hearing "Love in an Elevator" for the first time, and I was
Wicked.
just like, "What is this? This is amazing."
There's a ride in Florida. Not that I've been. My partner has. There's a whole theme park kind of dedicated to
the Rock and Roller
Aerosmith.
Coaster,
Yeah,
I
and
went,
it's all
I went
based on
once
it.
upon a time. Yeah, it's very cool.
So that's where we'll wrap it up. For the riff of the week. Walk This Way, Aerosmith, and you'll have a riff for us next week.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah, fab.
So in today's podcast, we was it a rock or a roll? It was a rock for George. It was a roll for me.
If you had stock, yeah.
We talked about the E and A shapes, major and minor bar chords. If you'd like us to expand upon that, let us know in the comments below.
I think we should, to be honest.
I think it might be
3
worth
people will
watching
watch
a
it,
podcast.
but it'll be worth doing it.
And we talked about guitar picks, size, brand, what we use, what we'd recommend. Fairly open-ended, that one, isn't it? It's not really, it's what works for you, and the experimentation will sort of lead you to what you want. We talked about underrated guitar players, so we got Wilco Johnson and Ry Cooder. Took some questions from the audience, and then we learned how to play Walk This Way. So thank you very much for joining me, George.
No worries, James. We'll do it again next week.
Next week for episode number 9.
Can you give me some G sharp blues?
G sharp.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah, I've been really, really careful to not
Put it out of
not
tune.
mess with it too much, but yeah. Oh.